such as are not acquainted with it, having a froth or scum that is very unpleasant in taste. They make a paste thereof, which they say is good for digestion and against the catarrh. Are you intrigued as to what beverage we might be talking about? Earlier this week, I posted a photo on my Instagram and Facebook with some of the ingredients that I purchased for this specific item that was a special viewer request and a suggestion that we make and that we learned a little bit about. So I have done some research. I've looked into some different recipes, and today with Simply Susan, Historical Sewing, Cooking, and Living, we are going to be trying to make two different versions of a classic drink called hot chocolate. So the first chocolate drink is believed to have been invented by the Mayan Empire around 2500 to 3000 years ago. And a cocoa drink was an essential part of Aztec culture by 1400 AD. And they referred to it, the spelling is Xocolatl, and I'm guessing that was kind of pronounced as a chocolatl. The drink became popular in Europe after being introduced from Mexico in the New World and has undergone multiple changes since then. Until the 19th century, hot chocolate was actually used more medicinally to treat liver and stomach ailments. So, today we are going to try to make French hot chocolate and decadently thick Italian hot chocolate. We are going to make one batch of each of these. Then we're going to try them and see what we think. French hot chocolate, it says that we need 4 ounces of bittersweet chocolate, at least 70% chopped. Now, I have this bar of 3.5 ounces, and then I have a few squares left of this 85%. So that's what we're going to mix together when we make our French hot chocolate. So I'm going to chop this up and then we'll start doing the other ingredients. For this recipe that we are making, I did cut it down in half because I didn't want to use half a pound of chocolate. 3/4 of a cup of whole milk. One-quarter cup heavy cream. Okay. 1 teaspoon powdered sugar. Then 1/4 of a teaspoon espresso powder. This is not proper espresso powder, I know that, but it's what I have. So we're just going to throw in a tiny bit of coffee, and that should do the trick to give us the flavor. So in a medium saucepan over medium heat, whisk together the whole milk, heavy cream, powdered sugar, and espresso powder until small bubbles appear around the edges, but do not let the mixture boil. So after defeating Montezuma's warriors and demanding the Aztec nobles hand over their valuables, Cortez returned to Spain in 1528. And that was when he brought chocolate with him. Now at that time, it was still an unsweetened drink that was only palatable if it was something that you were used to, is kind of the way that it was described. And it was very expensive because it was only grown, cacao beans were only grown in South America. So the sweet tasting hot chocolate that we are accustomed to wasn't invented until 17th century. And at that time, in 1657, the first chocolate house, which would be similar to current coffee shops, was open. And at that time, chocolate was still exceptionally expensive and cost what would be the equivalent to probably close to $75 a pound. Yeah, I'm sure that there are definitely some chocolates now that are still that expensive, but certainly none that I'm buying. But at any rate, that was kind of the going rate back then, and that's why it wasn't as popular or tasted by everybody. Oh, okay, okay. Don't boil. Let's turn that heat down a little bit. Okay, so small bubbles, good, good. Remove saucepan from heat. Yep, that's a good idea. And stir in the chopped chocolate until melted. Reheating on low if needed. So yeah, it looks super thick, super creamy, and we're going to pour this into little cups, and then we will take a taste once we make our Italian version. Now we're going to make our decadently thick Italian hot chocolate. First thing we do is melt butter in a medium saucepan over low. Okay. So we have that melting on low. And then once that melts, whisk in cornstarch until combined and melty. I like these directions. So 2 teaspoons to 1 tablespoon of cornstarch. We are cutting this recipe in half, and so we'll use a teaspoon or a teaspoon and a half. So get this butter melted. And then we'll proceed on. But last couple of things that I wanted to tell you about the way hot chocolate became a little bit more known as we know it today. So we talked about how the sweet tasting hot chocolate came around in the 17th century. First chocolate house was opened in 1657, but at that point it was still very, very dark and not the milk chocolate that we would know of today. So in the late 17th century, Sir Hans Sloane, president of the Royal College of Physicians, visited Jamaica. At that time, like I said, it was still very bitter, very dark chocolate kind of flavor. And he described the drink as nauseous. But at that time, he did find it more palatable when it was mixed with milk. And upon the discovery of the way the chocolate tasted when it was mixed with milk, at that point he then described it as the drink of the gods. And that's kind of the version that we know of most today, I think. So we added in the cornstarch, it's melted in, add in our milk. But yeah, I think hot chocolate is one of those things that a lot of times, a little bit of sugar. I mean, I think, like, I have good memories that, you drink hot chocolate. I remember when we would be called off of school because of the snow. I live in central Pennsylvania, and having snow days is definitely not an uncommon occurrence. But I remember I would sit on the radiator, watch the snow outside of the window, and Mom would give me hot chocolate. And I remember that, and I really enjoyed that. And hot chocolate is one of those things that when we go camping, a lot of times we'll camp in the late fall, and there is just nothing better than heat up some hot chocolate, sit around the campfire. It just brings good memories and just makes you happy. And there are chemicals in chocolate that do help with that, but I didn't go into the biochemical and all of that stuff. We were just talking about the history of it. So we're whisking this together and gradually increase to medium high. All right, I can do that. Then once it starts to thicken, then you add in the chocolate. So we also have, well, we have a half a cup of chopped chocolate for this one. It's a little bit heaping because the chunks are still pretty big. I didn't chop it very small. But for this one, I am using a 45% cocoa that's also a milk chocolate. I am super partial to milk chocolate. I know a lot of purists say that dark chocolate is so much better, whatever. I just like milk chocolate, and this recipe said that you can go lighter with all milk chocolate or all darker, that this recipe kind of gives me more options. So I don't know if that's a traditional Italian way to have those options or whether it's just a specific writer, but at any rate, I'm choosing to take the liberty to make this one a little bit lighter. All right, now we're bubbling, but I don't seem to be thickening much. You know what? We're gonna throw in just a teeny bit more cornstarch because it did say you could use a varying amount depending on what your goal was. So let's throw in that much more. Ooh, throw some of that on the stove too. Okay, let's whisk that in. I guess it's a little thicker. Maybe that's just the lumps. I'm not sure. So we might strain this one before we serve it because I don't think you're supposed to have to chew your chocolate. So anyway, we'll just keep this going a little bit longer. I think we are starting to get a little bit of thickening action going on here. Okay, and once it begins to thicken, turn on to low. So turn it to low and stir until melted. So this one, I definitely have some cornstarch lumps in here. It's probably still gonna taste pretty good. But this is, like, you know how when you make, and this isn't gonna be quite a good analogy, but you know how when you make instant pudding and you mix it together and you shake it or you stir it, and it's that not totally set, but it's definitely thicker than just plain milk? That's sort of what we have here. So I'm going to also give this one a little strain so that we don't have to chew the lumps, and get it poured to serve, and then we'll come back and try the chocolate that we made.
All right, everybody. So I'm going to end this video by just showing you some beautiful shots of the hot chocolate that we made. The French style hot chocolate was absolutely delicious, but a little bit bitter for my liking. The Italian hot chocolate was phenomenal, and I would highly recommend that you try it. I really enjoyed the hint of sweetness with the milk chocolate, but I think that it would even be good with a darker chocolate just because the texture was so smooth and silky. I mean, granted, once I strained out the lumps. So, thank you very much for joining me for this journey into the history of hot chocolate. I hope that you learned something, and please let a comment if you try the recipes.